All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another broadcast of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. I'm Rick Weaver, your host. My co-host Blake has not showed up yet, so tonight, anyway, we have Mr. Carter Buschardt on with us. Carter's author, also a investigator with the BFRO. Carter, floor's yours, boy.
What's going on? Here's the books, in case anyone's wondering.
Right, Sasquatch. What's the name of those?
Evidence of an Enigma 1 and 2. The orange book, the first book,
All right. What are you working on anything now?
uh, I might be working on the third, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna write a third one yet. But I've got plenty of material because after the first two, folks have just been contacting me. I'm getting a call a week every 2 weeks from somebody who saw me or read a book or heard about the book and wants to tell some fantastical tales, not just your meat and potato standard Sasquatch crossing the road in front of my car or watching me fish while I was, down at the creek or something like that. It's just like the real supernatural quantum paranormal. They're seeing these things, they're hearing them, they're mind speak, they're coming in and out of their property, they're experiencing them in a way that people are poo-pooing for the most part. Especially the big reporting agencies like BFRO. So, but I'm working on. I'm just putting together all these photos and all these stories, and I don't know if they're going to turn into a book, but I'm probably about 25% on my way to one if I want to. I just haven't. It takes. You ever written anything at all? Ever written a book or even a report? You know how long it takes. I mean, it takes you away from doing stuff.
Dude, I wrote a book back and published in 2010, and it took me, God, it took me 4 years. It sure
Yeah,
did.
it took me 6 months for each of mine, but luckily, I had COVID. Not luckily, but COVID was going on. There was nothing I could do or go anywhere. Nobody would go anywhere with me if I wanted to go out, and I really don't go out by myself for safety reasons. So it took me about 6 months, but I was strapped to this chair, and I did it every day, at least 4 to 5 hours, if not more.
Right.
you know so once you get doing that, you know how it goes. It takes all your time, and then you get all excited and it starts taking shape and you start working on it more and more and more. Then you read it and you go, oh god, I don't like that, so you start over, or you put it on hold for a while and go back. So but I've been fortunate enough to have so much material, you know, and I'm just trying to tell the stories that nobody else will listen to, because nobody else will listen to these witnesses when they're talking about some of the weird stuff that's going on. And it's mind blowing. I got a guy in Canada who's been going through stuff with these beings for 50 years. He's 66 now. It's kind of like that Janice Carter Coy. You familiar with that book, right? 50 Years of Bigfoot.
Right.
Yeah, it's not nearly as detailed as some of the stuff that she's put out there. Uh, Less paranormal, but more interactions daily. I mean, they're living in her grandpa's house in the basement, in the barn, and stuff. I mean, and so, but this guy went his is still going through things with his the two Sasquatch that seem to be following him around. His dad and he had a lot of encounters. His dad died, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And the whole time they were going through these things, his dad would say, "No, that's not what you think it is. It's a guy in a suit, or it's a bear standing up, or it's a guy in a ghillie suit, or it's a deer standing on its hind legs eating fruit off a tree." Or, he would always poo-poo what he knew was going on. Then when he was on his deathbed, he finally told my guy. He said, David, all these years we were seeing these things, and I kept telling you they weren't real. They weren't. That wasn't what we saw. He said, yeah, Dad. He said, well, they're real. You're right. We did see them. We did. He goes, I know. I know. You were just trying to protect me. So it sounds just so far fetched when you say, I've been going through this for 50 plus years. It sounds like baloney. If you've read the Janice Carter Coy book, hadn't you, or heard enough
Oh
of
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Believe it or not, do you believe it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See, so do I. There's just too much data there, too much detail. And if you talk to her, and I've seen a couple of her YouTube things, and she's been interviewed, they correct you on little stuff. That's how you know someone's not jerking you. Is you know, sometimes I wrote stuff down when I was talking to my guy in Canada. His name is David Allen. I would write stuff down wrong, and he would correct me on the little things. Like getting a direction, a compass direction wrong, or a color wrong, or a gift that was left on a certain day, or a certain. They've got it down to like, oh, I remember all of this. It's all they correct you. So hoaxers don't correct you. They'll just, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that sounds close. That's good. I mean, they don't care. They just want to get their BS story out there. So I've vetted him with all the stuff he's told me, and he gets upset if you get it wrong. He corrects you if you get it wrong, and he gets a little defensive. If I question things, but you have to question. You can't just take it at face value. You have to
Yeah.
you have to interview them and find out, what they know and what they don't know, what they think and what they don't think. You have to get that. So it's very intriguing, to talk to him and have a source of information. The second book I released, I added, I think there's 110 pages that's just him alone. 110 pages, you know, and there's some incredible artwork, uh, but a lot of people like him have started contacting me with their tales of just these incredible paranormal quantum type events that are not your traditional Sasquatch ran across the highway right in front of my car, 3 o'clock in the morning. Because basically 50% of all sightings are of road crossings. That's pretty much all you hear. Road crossings, and I saw it in the woods watching me fish, or staring at me in my blind or something. So the rest of them are just off the charts. So you have strangers who want nothing from me. They don't want their name and life. They don't want any money. They don't want anything. They just want to tell their story and have a safe place to tell their story. I'm not going to ridicule them. I'm not going to, say, well, you got to be crazy. You have to be mistaken. You probably saw something else. You just don't know what you saw. Maybe you had a bad burrito for lunch, and that gave you, you start hallucinating because you got some bad food or something. But when you start hearing all these tales, you just go, there's something here. There's something going on, because all these people from all walks of life. I'm talking about military, law enforcement, politicians, people in government, everyday people like you and me, just working stiffs. Just everyday people. All are coming up with these same tales, and they don't want anything. They just want to get it out, and it makes them feel better that they've told the stories, even if it's not paranormal. Just anybody who's sat on seeing one of these beings before, they feel really, really good about just getting to be able to tell the story. And so I feel bad for a lot of people that have been ridiculed. So it's been really interesting. It's just, you know, like I say, weekly, every other week, a couple times a month, whatever it is, I get a phone call, or a letter, email with photos. And it's just, it's coming pouring in. It's awesome. I mean, it's a great thing. I wish I could write 10 books, but I don't know if I have even one more in me. These were accidental books. I didn't start to write one intentionally. I thought, well, I've got all these reports. BFRO, I've published really close to, I've had 100 reports published to bfro.net. You can find my reports, 100 of them, about 98, 97, something like that, almost 100. If you count the ones they published and then unpublished, yeah, it's 100. It's easily 100. And that's a lot of people. So I've talked about 350, 400 people over 10 years. And that's a lot of people and a lot of data. And they're all telling similar stories, no matter if it's paranormal or if it's just your regular stuff. And that just tells you there's something there. These people aren't making this stuff up. There is something.
Right. When Carter, I got a question for you, bud. The the deal as far as the paranormal aspect of Sasquatch. I know that you've worked with the BFRO. You've taken a lot of reports, but I have a lot of people that have told me of strange things that's happened with these beings, and they have told it to the investigators that have taken their reports, but yet whatever is the paranormal aspect of it is always left out of the reports. What's going on with that?
That's true. You know, uh, they have been sanitizing reports. I've got about 4 or 5 of mine that they left paranormal and/or anything that points to intelligence, taking it out, because they don't want that out there. They got a TV show to protect, you know. But I was invited to a show. If I say the name, you'll know it, but I don't want to mention the name right now. And they were doing a show where Matt Moneymaker and 4 or 5 of his little cronies were going to be on this show. And they were going to be answering some of these accusations about sanitizing, falsifying reports, because that's the world's biggest database, and it's being manipulated. So they've done it to my reports. Luckily for me, I made copies of my reports before and after. Because I'm just anal, I'm in real estate. I make copies of everything. So as soon as I get a report finished, I make a copy of it. Then I send it in to get published to BFRO. And then when it gets published, I read that one, and lo and behold, I found several of my reports were changed, had things taken out of them. And Matt even told this host of this podcast, I only altered one of his reports. I just thought it was complete fiction. But he published that report anyway with all the stuff out of it. So if I'm full of crap, if I'm a dreamer, I'm making stuff up, or I'm gullible to believe what everybody else he claims is being made up, why am I still there? Why do they keep publishing my reports? So the short answer is yes. Reports have been manipulated, and paranormal or intelligent activity is removed or greatly redacted. It's sad. It's not fair to the witnesses. And so you've heard of this, not from my mouth, but you've heard this before from other people, right?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I sure have. I've had people that have called me on my home phone, called me on my cell phone that have giving me these reports, that sighting reports, and they tell me, that they have turned it into BFRO. Blake, my co-host, Blake had a sighting in 2011 down at Altoona Lake. Blake gave him, the whole detail of the sighting, and about half of what he had uh, actually discussed with the lady on the phone got cut from the report.
Yeah. And how is that fair to Blake, the witness, or anybody else who's a witness that calls it in? And then, so the world's largest Sasquatch database has been polluted, compromised. You know, you don't know what's real and what's not. So, and that's why I quit publishing reports. I'm still with them, but for purely selfish reasons, because a lot of people do call in reports. But now the reports don't have nearly as much data as they used to. A lot of the reports that have been published are gone. But I've made copies of mine, and Matt even admitted to sanitizing one of my reports because he just thought it was baloney. But I've got probably half a dozen that I need to go back through because I'm going to do a show on this podcast here. I don't know when I'm doing it. I think sometime in May. I can't remember. But anyhow, it's just like, why would you do that? What are you afraid of? Will you take this stuff out? So was some of Blake's stuff paranormal or quantum? Or did it indicate an intelligence?
It basically indicated an intelligence toward the creatures. And, one guy I spoke with out of Tennessee, uh, he said he had and I may have told you this in the last show that we did together. This guy was going up to a well-known campground in Tennessee, and he'd been going up there every Friday night, he said, and he'd been having encounters with these creatures. He said along about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, he would get in his tent, go to bed, and he'd start having pebbles thrown against his tent. And this carried on for several weeks. Well, he decided he was going to go to Walmart, he said, on this particular Friday, bought a big basket of tennis balls. Okay? He took them up there with him. Well, these things got to doing it that night, and he said he got out of the tent and he started throwing his tennis balls up through the woods. Okay, now let me back up just a little. He said that the evening that he went in up there, he said there was like 7 or 8 other vehicles parked in the parking area where he was at. Okay, he got out there that night and started throwing these tennis balls. He said, well, you could actually hear these things running through the woods chasing these tennis balls. Okay, the next day when he started to leave, now he said that he went down to his vehicle, hiked back out of there about a mile, went down to his vehicle, and every one of these tennis balls, out of all these vehicles in the lot, every one of these tennis balls that he had thrown the night before were lined up against the bottom of his windshield across his car.
They knew who he was. They knew what he was doing, and they knew what car he was driving.
Yeah. So now does that not show you the intellect that these creatures have?
Oh, heck yeah, yeah. They can count. Well, my report, and this is the sad part, because this was a really nice guy, and he was really shook up. And when COVID started, he was living in Texas. Now he's from Oklahoma, but he was living in Texas. And so him and 2 buddies, when COVID hit, people were losing their jobs and getting uptight and worried, and everybody's wearing masks and not wearing masks, being all hateful. So they said, we want to get out of town. So they went to Oklahoma at a place that him and his family used to camp all the time. So they went to Oklahoma for the weekend just to get away. And it was just impromptu, last minute thing. So they took their sleeping bags, tent, some matches, no flashlights, and a little bit of grub, and they just went to get away. They were just going to stay overnight. So they went and camped, and it started pouring down rain. So they built a fire. They went and got a bunch of rocks. They made a fire ring, nice, like you're supposed to in the woods. They made a fire ring, and they built a fire. And as the rain kept going and going, they couldn't keep the fire going. So they decided, well, the heck, we'll just go to sleep. So we went to bed. About 1:19 in the morning, exactly, because he had his phone with him, and he heard this. It was really loud, and as he heard it, but his two buddies didn't wake up. They were out. They were tired. So he thought, dang, that's an awful loud woodpecker. What's a woodpecker doing at night? I've never heard that. But it was just knocks. So he heard 5, 6, 7 sets of knocks, 3 knocks each. And it was bam, bam, bam. Then it was closer, then it was further away, then it was about a mile away, then it was another direction, then it was back behind the tent. They kept hearing these bam, 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 bam. So, and they kept getting closer and closer. And so by then the other guys woke up, and this knocking was going on around and went on for about 45 minutes. About every 10, 11 minutes, they had 3 sets of knocks. 3, knock. So then they heard rustling movement around their camp. Then they got spooked. They kind of had an idea what it was, but they just couldn't grasp it. So the whole time, all this knocking was going on. Then it was raining and put their fire out. So they huddled together and they stayed awake almost to daylight. They just couldn't sleep. They were so freaked out. Well, they get up and they go out and look at the fire, sun up, and 3 rocks had been taken out of the fire ring and put in the middle of the fire, stacked in the middle of the fire. Now there's 3 of them, 3 knocks. They're being counted. And then on top of that, 3 rocks taken out of the fire ring, big rocks. I mean, they got, good sized bowling ball sized rocks, a little smaller, but, good sized rocks. 3 rocks are put in the middle of the fire. Now, if that's not counting and letting you know that I know there's 3 of you and you're here, what is it? The fact that those rocks were taken out of the ring, that was taken out of the report. So when the guy saw his report published, he said, what the hell? That's not what I told you. And I went and looked at it and I said, dang, no, that's not what you told me. Because, I get a note that'll just say, congratulations, your report's been published to BFRO. Then you look it up and look at it, but that's it. But when I read it, I went, oh my God, no, what the hell? Sent an email to Matt, didn't say a word to me. This guy was really pissed, and I could tell it hurt his feelings because this was an emotional thing for him.
Right.
And his buddies. One of the guys will never go in the woods ever again. It spooked him. The other guy is fascinated now with the subject, and he and that guy are like they're squatching buddies now. They go anytime they go anywhere in the woods, they're always together because they love it. But I gave him Matt's email. He wrote 2 emails to Matt, totally ignored him, blew him off. It's just like a big F you, And when I was supposed to be on the show with them, this was 10 days ago, 10 days, 2 weeks ago. I was supposed to be on a show where they're going to discuss and bring up the fact that BFRO has been falsifying reports. They said to the host, if Carter's on there, we won't come on. I said, good. What are you afraid of, Matt? And they wouldn't come on the show. So he did the show with them, and I'm going to do my own show with him in a couple of weeks. I'm trying to remember when it is. Uh, I can't remember, but anyway, sometime in May. So, but that's happened to my reports. I've had references to a creature calling a woman by her name coming from the woods. And this creature was calling her by a nickname that her husband calls her when they're out like working around the yard, like, honey pie, sugar plum, whatever the name was, which was just a version of her real name, her God-given name, your birth name. That was just an abbreviation. It was just something, a little affectionate thing you call your wife, like Sandy Poo or Honey Pie or whatever. That was taken out of a report. And all he did was take out, call me by my name. And it just said, the report said, spoke to her, called to her. But he took out that he called her by name. Took that out of the report. What the heck? So, what are you afraid of? I know they're trying to protect their TV show. I know that's what it is, because we've built our empire on these creatures are just dumb apes. And they're not just dumb apes. They're considerably smarter than we are, smarter than we'll ever be in the ways of the world and ways of nature, So the world's largest database has been polluted. So what do you believe? And you can only explain like 20% of your belief in Sasquatch with a flesh and blood only stance. The other 80% is like, you got a lot of stuff you can explain with quantum math, quantum science, science in general. And you can't do that with just a dumb ape. All it is, Carter, that's all it is. No, that ain't it. So yeah, it's a truism, and I've talked to about a half a dozen investigators that said they've had their reports redacted, polluted, sanitized, censored as well. And there's probably others. I just know a handful of them. There's been a big turnover there. So what do you do with that? All you have to do is put a disclaimer out. The opinions of this investigator and or the witnesses are not necessarily shared by BFRO, but we want to put these reports out there and you be the judge. That's all you got to do, is distance yourself from it. I mean, that's all you got to do. And people do that all the time with disclaimers, just like when they're advertising drugs on TV or something, well, beware of all the side effects, painful rectal bleeding and, projectile vomiting and, hallucinations. Well, okay, thanks for the warning. But I'll take this pill anyway because it'll make me better. Well, all you got to do is do a disclosure on the BFRO webpage. All you got to do is, we're going to put all this stuff out here. Let you be the judge. And they're afraid of losing the people that listen to or watch the TV show. And I said, well, I've told him before. I said, the people you think you're going to lose, you might lose some of them, but I guarantee you, you've got a 70-80% of an audience that you're just ignoring, that you're going to get, and you might start learning a whole bunch more stuff. I'm not sure why you don't want to know it, other than you got to keep your sponsors on the TV show happy. We got to sell more tampons, beer, and drugs for old people. So we're going to keep all that woo stuff out of there. I'm not sure what the logic is, really. I mean, that's my assumption. Why would you just arbitrarily take that data out? That people who have had these heartfelt, gut-wrenching encounters have told you, they've bared their soul. They've told you something that is, for some people, has destroyed their lives or made their lives very difficult. And to take that away from them because I don't believe that, and he just tells everybody, well, some of these investigators are just gullible. They'll believe anything, maybe they're making it up. I don't know. But why would I do that? So I haven't done reports in almost 2 years because I don't want to be a part of that, And if I'm not with BFRO tomorrow, uh, that'll be fine with me because I don't want to put my name on anything that I know is going to be distorted or altered and be false, you know. And so people are accessing the database, the BFRO database, thinking, "Oh, look at all this stuff! Look at all this." Well, you don't know what you're missing. There's so much stuff missing. How can
So
you read?
basically, all they're getting on these reports are half true. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
that's basically what
yeah,
they're getting.
yeah. Now, some of the ones uh, is they're just pedestrian sightings. I was driving home on the back roads, 3 in the morning. I saw this 8, 9, 10 foot something run across the road. I think it was a Sasquatch. It stopped and looked at me and it kept going. Those are a dime a dozen. They're still very important to show that there is a breeding, living population all over the country, all over the world, all over North America.
Right.
But when you get into the really nitty gritty, like Blake's or my guy, that shows sapient, sentient intelligence, a thinking, reasoning mind. What are you afraid of? I mean, and that brings me to the other thing is that, you know, the government knows exactly what's going on. The lumber and paper companies, they know exactly what's going on. In this book, my guy in Canada, I've got an awesome story about just that, But my whole thing is, it's a polluted database. It's erroneous. And so many guys, and the reason I'm still there and the reason most everybody is still there, even if they know this is going on, because it is the largest depository of information coming in. And I've met some really awesome people, awesome witnesses, habituation. They have them living on their property for years and decades. They interact with them on a weekly, monthly basis. I mean, it's just like they see them all the time and they have a relationship with them. I'm there just in case I get that one report that might be the smoking gun. But at the same time, I'm there waiting for that report that might be the smoking gun. Maybe the report that was the smoking gun's already been removed and or altered, so I wouldn't know it if I saw one because the information's gone. I don't know.
Right. Well, as a researcher here in Georgia, I do quite often go to the database, the BFRO database, to see, you know, what various areas from the state that were getting reports, to see what new reports, that they've actually published over the last 3 or 4 months, whatever. Um, and I get a lot of pinpoint areas that I can actually go to and do investigations. But uh, you know, I have actually talked to people that have published these reports, and just like you, they tell me that half of what they have reported to the people at BFRO are not put in those reports. Uh, and then they sit down and tell me, what actually took place. And I have a whole list compiled here at the office on that. And
Well, hang on to that list because you might need it someday.
right,
I've got my notes, and see the thing is, you know, I've got probably 150, 200 reports here, and I made copies because, like, I'm a real estate agent, semi-retired,
right,
but it's just my nature to do paperwork. So when I type up the report and I get it all looking really good and I send it into BFRO and do all the protocol and push the button, I'd like to have this published to the database. And so once I'm through with that report and I like the way it looks, I make a copy and put it in my file. So I have it. It's over with and I move on to the next report. Then when the reports come out, of course, I'd heard these rumors for years, but I just kind of, nah, they wouldn't do that. Why would you? But then when I started writing my book, I started going back into my reports, and that's when I saw that they'd been altered. Some of my reports. Well, what the heck? What is it? What are they doing? And Matt and I had a lot of conversations about the paranormal, their classification system. They have all these categories within the flats. We call it the flats, which is where all the reports come. Somebody, bottom area driving down the road, or they're camping and they see something, hear something. This isn't a report. It's called the flats. Then when it's put in the flats, any investigator who works that area can assign the reports to themselves, call the people up, work the report up, get more data, more information. You always get more after they've had a chance to think about it and relive everything once the shock wears off. There's kind of a cooling down period. And so you get it, you assign it to yourself, do the report, and send it in for publication. But there's other categories: insane, hallucinating, UFO, obvious hoax, admitted hoax. There's all these categories you can put the paranormal stuff, and that's where it all goes. That's where it all goes to die. UFOs, obvious hoax, stuff like that. And what you're supposed to do, if you put one of these reports into this category, and we do get there is some bull crap that comes in there. Well, I was sitting around the house with my grandma, and the Sasquatch came in and, bit her head off and ate her, then sat down with me and we had tea, then the Sasquatch left. Okay, obviously kids are playing with computers. I mean, you get that kind of stuff every now and then. And that deserves to be in a certain category, the bullshit category. And you're supposed to put your name on it. You put it there and you put your name on it. I see a lot of reports that are just in these categories. Nobody's even bothered to put their name on it and why they put it there. They just put it there because they don't want to mess with it, or somebody has put it there. So, and there are some awesome paranormal quantum type reports that'll never see the light of day in BFRO. Lots of them, thousands. It's sad. It's a sad state of affairs. And they've got such a big brand name now, they want to protect it at any cost, So yeah, by the way, Ricky, if something ever happens to me, put in a word. I'm pretty much sure I'm kidding, but you never know. But it's unfortunate, and we're missing the boat, and to my point, I'm quite sure the government knows exactly what's going on, and they knew about UFOs. They lied to us about UFOs for about 80, 90 years.
No, most definitely.
Yeah, with the Tic Tac video. Okay. We lied. We're aware of them. We know these were built off planet. We don't have the technology. That's not our stuff. So I know that the stuff exists. We'll get back to you. But those Tic Tac videos, those are real. So we'll get back to you. So they lied to us for 80 years, and they finally admitted it when those Tic Tac videos showed up. It's going to be the same with Sasquatch, because DNA is going to come a long, long way. It already has. And just regular guys like you and me, investigators, researchers, we've got all kinds of little technology at our fingertips we didn't have 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Thermal cameras and recorders, and and DNA and other kind of stealth modes of observation, especially at night. You can only BS us for so long, and then it's going to come out. But they'll probably give us lip service, just like the government did with the Tic Tac videos.
Right.
We believe they were built off planet, but we're not sure who did it and why. We'll have to get back to you on that. Mm-hmm. So that's like a little bit of an admittance, throwing you a couple of bones, and then just leaving you hanging out to dry. Because I guarantee you 5 years from now, we'll probably be having the same conversation about, What about the Tic Tac videos? Well, upon further research, we found that maybe these are just anomalies we just can't explain yet in nature, and blah 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 blah. Bull crap. So
I've had hundreds of people ask me why the government would try to conceal these creatures, why they would try to convince the American people that these creatures don't exist. Well, my answer has always been, look at the logging industry. Look what happened with the little spotted owl and the logging industry. I mean,
yep,
that nearly collapsed the whole logging industry. Uh, just one little owl did. Can you
exactly.
imagine if the government, uh, right? If the government came forward and said, "Oh yes, these creatures exist," can you imagine what would happen to tourism? Can you imagine what would happen to the outdoor industry that sells all the hiking gear, camping gear? Uh, it would collapse. I mean, because a rational thinking person that knows that there's a 1,000 pound creature out here running around in the woods, they're not going to take their kids out there to go camping. They're not going to take their kids out there to go fishing.
Yep.
So
Well, here's another spin on that, and that's in this book, and it's a awesome story. My guy lives in Canada, British Columbia, and British Columbia is not known for. They do a lot of forestry and timber work. They are
right,
probably one of the worst at reforesting, where they've cut and harvested trees.
right,
They'll just walk. If you ask anybody in BC, they have a bad track record. Probably because it's so vast. There's kabillions of acres that humans might not have even seen ever. I mean, just way up in the hinterlands. You know, and so my guy, work is really hard to get in the bush. So he was put on a tree planting crew with 12 guys. 6 guys went to this one area. They were all in one van. And then the other 6 guys decided they were going to go up over the hill. They all had their little pouches with all their saplings in them, their little, the little seedlings, and they just go around and plant them and stuff. Well, my guy with his 5 other guys, him and his 5 guys, there's 6 of them. They went to this one area, it's just in a big open clear area. Now they're in the middle of freaking nowhere. They're in a van. They're picked up at a logging camp. They're taken up deep into the forest. There's no roads, no nothing. It's just we're driving till we can't. You're gonna get out and start planting trees. So one area, they get out of the van and they all almost immediately start just acting goofy, like, oh, it's so pretty. I feel so wonderful. There's such a great vibe. They were all just acting like they were stoned out of their gourds, just out of nowhere. They look around on the floor of the forest, and there is hundreds and hundreds of bare footprints, giant bare humanoid footprints, anywhere from 8 inches to 25, 26 inches, all over, hundreds of them. Some of the footprints still had a little bit of soil trickling back down into them, or a little water seeping in. That's how fresh they were. When they pulled that van up and they all got out of the van, there was probably a dozen Sasquatch there, and they all bolted and ran. Well, guess where they ran? They ran over the hill where this other group went. This gets good, So my guys, they're seeing these big root balls, these bushes and small trees have been pulled up out of the ground and then set back down into the hole. And then on the side of the hill, where these side of the embankment where these trees and shrubs are, a hole has been dug underneath the root ball, and you can see where creatures, beings, Sasquatch, juveniles had crawled in underneath and were sucking and chewing on the roots of these trees and bushes. and there was saliva dripping down as they saw this. Like they just, if they'd been there 5 seconds earlier, they would have seen something incredible. But these squatches scattered for the four corners of the earth. So, and there's a lot more to it, but I'll keep it short. So the other six guys, so this guy and his buddies are all just like, oh, look at all the pretty footprints. Oh, who's running around barefoot? Oh my gosh, they're gonna hurt their little feet. They were just acting so stupid, but they were just giddy. It was just crazy. The other six guys went up over the hill, up deep, deep, deep into the forest, because they were all big macho hunters. They wanted to hang out together. They wanted to see if they could find traces of game so they could come back and maybe hunt, even though they were not supposed to do such a thing. But anyway, all of a sudden, my guys hear this screaming and yelling, and they look up over the hill, and a lot of these footprints are going up over the hill. And then they see these 100, 200-foot trees being pushed back and forth, and they hear these grunts and groans. Then they hear these screams of the men, and the men come running back over the hill. And I kid you not, the artwork in here is awesome by Sibylla Irwin. Their hair is standing straight out, literally. Some of them had shoulder length hair. It was like it had been ratted and hairsprayed with 20 gallons of hairspray. It was just stiff and hanging out. Yeah, see, even the dog's freaking out. And so when they all got together, the foreman by this time heard all the screaming and ruckus, and he comes down there and he's going, what the heck? What the hell are y'all doing? How come you've trashed this area? You haven't even planted any trees. And what's wrong with you guys? What y'all do to your hair? What's going on? And they told him. And he said, get in the van, everybody get in the van. And they drove him back to the forestry office, which was in the middle of nowhere. And they interviewed each one separately. And each one was told, if you say a word about this to anybody, you'll never work in this industry ever again. And you know how hard it is to get work. We pay good money, cash money. You say a word, you'll never work in this industry again. And then they split them all up and put them on. One guy was on another group, took another out of all 12. All 12 were put onto 12 different groups, one guy from each group, so they couldn't have anybody to talk to about what happened. And they said, you don't say a word, or you'll never work in this industry again. And that's happened before. They say pilots and cops, people in government positions of high power, you don't say a word about this, because if you do, you're done. Just like they used to do with pilots back in the day when they said, they saw a UFO 36,000 feet. You say a word, you've lost your livelihood. And back then they were making $100,000 a year. Now they're probably making $2.25 a year as an airline pilot, making some good coin. You're not going to say anything. So the lumber and paper companies are fully aware what's going on up there. They have crews that are assigned to eradicate them, or to run them off. And these guys that ran up over the hill, the Sasquatch have been there since long before we were ever there. And they'll be there long before or after we're gone. They'll be there long after we're gone. And so they consider the land that we're on their land, because they were there before we were. But they'll give us so much. But if you come to a certain area, you don't come past this. We will make sure you leave. Not going to hurt you, but we'll make sure you leave.
Right.
And that's in the story. It's in great detail. There's a little bit more detail from what I told, but that's the Cliff Notes version of it. But, you can talk to all kinds of government workers, the UFO, Sasquatch, anything, technology. They'll tell you, you don't say anything or you're done. You could go to prison, you lose your job, lose your pension, or more. So that's what, and the other thing is, if there's more to these beings, which I'm 98% convinced there is more to them than a flesh and blood creature. Too many people with veracity I cannot find any fault with are telling these stories. So if there's something more and they know that, they certainly aren't going to tell us. They're not going to tell us. They don't want us knowing that stuff. Is that your buddy Blake?
No, no, this was a friend of mine from over there. Jay wouldn't know when we're gonna
Yeah.
go squatching back at Blue Ridge.
Yep. But so if there's something to these beings, they don't want us to know that either. Because why would they keep such a secret if it's just a dumb ape? Because they're discovering, scientists, botanists, all kinds of people are discovering new plants, new fish, new animal, you know, insects. They're being discovered every week, as we learn more about our world. And they tell us all about that stuff. And, small chimps that were supposed to be maybe part of the human lineage, so I can't remember where they were. Was it Thailand or somewhere recently in the Sumatra, Samoa? Little cave, little 2 or 3 foot tall gorilla, ape, chimp type beings. Well, they told us all about that, but there's nothing to them, allegedly. So now all of a sudden, there's all these rumors about there being something going on. We're not hearing about it. Because why would they keep just another dumb ape secret?
Well, going back to the dumb ape aspects of these things, I've been doing this off and on since 1981. Since my first sighting in '81, my face-to-face encounter with one of these creatures. So I know these creatures exist. I know I've been out there at night, Carter. I've had rocks the size of the size of baseballs whiz by my head within 2 foot of my head, knowing that these things could have took my head off with any shot, with any rock that they've thrown at me at any time. But no, I mean it's not a it's not a it's not an aspect that they want to kill you. They want to frighten you when you come into their area. They want you out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I've encountered with these creatures.
Yeah.
I've encountered these creatures in a language all their own. I have heard them communicating with one another. I've had these creatures. You go back to the deal. People saying that they've actually been able to smell these creatures. I've been right there, had them on top of me, man, where it would be so stout they would actually bring tears to your eyes. And whether this is a scent that they actually emit, or whether it's something that uh, because of the way they live, that it causes this scent on them, I don't know. But dude, I've seen it all. I've heard them. I've smelled them. I've had them right on top of me. But these creatures, if they don't want you to see them, you're not going to see them.
That's right. Yeah. And I've, that's a good point. The smell. Now, I have been with people and they go, "Do you smell that?" And they're all going, "Oh my God, that's nasty. What is that?" I'm going, "What are you talking about? I don't smell anything." So whether it's my sense of smell that's all jacked up. Now, one time I did smell something that was very sweet and pungent, like almost too sweet. And everybody noticed that. I'm thinking, what is that? And a fellow investigator said, "Well, I've smelled that on a few occasions, and I think that's the same type of smell that we smell that everyone thinks is so nasty and rank." And so, like you mentioned, is it something they emit on purpose, or is it something when they get into a situation that just happens, physiologically or biologically? It's they don't have any control over it, or is it because they don't bathe like we do and they, poop and pee on themselves as they're walking down the trail and just keep going? There's no toilet paper in the forest. Actually, the forest is nothing but toilet paper in its early form, technically.
Right.
But you don't know. I've never smelled that nasty smell. I've had this one overpowering, really sweet, almost perfumey, but it was almost too strong. It was very sweet. It was like honey or something, but on steroids. But and everybody smelled that. And one of it, well, I was in this other researchers. I was in his research area. He said, well, I smelled that a couple of times, and I think that's another form of one of those smells that I associate with these beings. So I've never smelled the nasty smell. But yeah, if they want to take you out with a rock, they can. They just why? I don't want to do that. I don't want to have 400,000 humans with guns coming in looking for me and my family because I happened to hit a human in the head with a rock. Didn't mean to. So if they want to take you out, they can. They're good shots. I had a skeptic.
At any given time.
Oh yeah. I had a skeptic.
I've had these creatures bluff charges.
Yeah.
I've had them shake trees. I've had them snap tree limbs, 10 foot up in a tree, man. Tree limbs this big around. Pop them like you popping a toothpick. I mean, you hear them for a quarter of a mile when they pop.
Yeah.
And within reason, there's no human being gonna be running around down there on stilts, popping limbs like that.
Yeah.
Not limbs that size. I mean, man, it's unreal.
And the funny thing is that a lot of my witnesses, and even those with that call into BFRO or your show or you meet, some of them were skeptics until it happened. Scarborough Sasquatch Station. Hey Carter. Hello. Scarborough Squatch Station saying hi to you and me. So thought I'd say hi. But they could take you out. And a lot of these people, big macho hunters, I've been in these woods all my life. I've never seen anything like that. And if it exists, I'd know it. A couple months later, you get a phone call. Carter, I got something to tell you. I got to talk to you real quick. Give me a call. And they had a sighting. And their bravado, there ain't nothing like that. I've seen it. That's all gone. And they are changed people. And, did you have a knowledge of these beings before you saw yours in 82? Did you have
81, July the 5th, 1981.
Funny how you remember that date, huh?
Right. Can't even remember my own grandkid's birthday, but I can actually remember the sighting like it was yesterday. But
Yep.
No, Carter. Other than I grew up with of course, with the Gimlin Patterson film from California. Back in I was born in '58, so on up into the '60s. We saw periodic film clips of this on TV.
Uh-huh.
You know, old shows back then would have it on there. But no, not really. I had really never, I have hunted and fished, and that's what's weird about this. I had hunted and fished since I was 7 years old. The mountains of North Georgia, of Tennessee, Alabama, uh, and had never thought about running across one of these creatures until I saw that one that day. And, when I first saw it, it was crouched down, uh, right on the end of a sandbar, had its hands down in the water. And I was in a raft, and me and my good friend Jeff Hendricks. And when I first saw the thing, I was looking to my left, and I saw it, and I thought it was actually a bear. But then it happened to dawn on me, this thing is crouched like a man crouching. Well, when its hands come up out of the water, that's the first thing I noticed was its hands was twice the size of mine, and hair come down the back of them down to about the middle knuckle, and big long fingers, and it was just, man, it blew my. But this thing threw its head back. It never screamed at us, never done anything, never charged us, anything like that. All it done was threw its head back and winded, and when it winded us, it bounced up, and I'm going to say the tree line was probably 30, 40 yards behind us, and that or behind it, and that thing in three big long strides, it was in that tree line, Carter, and gone.
Yeah. So that kind of changed your life right about there, huh?
Most definitely, most
Yeah.
definitely. That showed me that there were greater things out there in the wilderness than I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And that handprint. Now, you see that handprint back there on the wall?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That
I
one
see it.
that was taken here in Missouri by my partner, Brian Woods. It's an area we work. It's actually called Monkey Mountain. Go figure that, you know. But
Right.
it is between 12 and 13 inches from the base of the palm to the middle finger. So it's about out to here. And I've got a picture. Yeah. In my first book, that's my hand on that
Wow.
print. Now there are, you probably can't see them on here. Maybe you can. Yeah, you can see those dermal ridges,
Mm-hmm.
clear as a bell. And it was taken in an area that's probably, 30 miles from me, just down the road. And we go there live. I've had 3 or 4 Class A sightings published to BFRO from this one little area. I mean, I could say it's an acre or less in total footage of where the activity has been. But 12, 13 inches, it's good size. That's a big old boy,
Really?
in the dermal ridges. And so at the time when he got that print, I had a connection at a crime lab, a police crime lab here, and he said, and I carry a DNA kit with me at all times. It's a DNA kit. I got swabs and bags, and
Right.
and fingerprint material and all that kind of. Always with me, And I also carry a 50-pound bag, give or take, of UltraCal, the casting material.
Right.
I've always got it. I will never ever not have it with me. It stays in my car 24/7. If I got a bunch of stuff to do with the family, that stuff stays in there. I stack stuff on top of it. Anyway, I took the little fingerprint cards. And the reason that these prints are dark is because I dusted them. So they've all been dusted with fingerprint dust. And there's a ruler there.
Right.
Anyway, I put the prints, I dusted them, got the tape, pulled the prints off the handprint, put it on the card, took it to the crime lab, and they said, this is a real handprint. I don't know who it is or what it is. Please do not bring anything like this in here ever again. And they said, by the way, whoever it is does not have a record. I thought that was kind of funny. Well, I'm glad that Sasquatch doesn't have a police record anywhere, because I'd be in big trouble, and I dare you to send a couple of squad cars after that. But, but they said, because when you go to a crime lab and you take data in there, you have to log it in. You have to compare it to the national and local criminal database. And so, because you can't just take it in there and do a little favor like they did for me. So they made it look like it was just processing of evidence from a crime. And they said, well, this is a real print. I don't know who or what it is, but this thing's, I don't want to see anything like this in here ever again because I have to answer to it, not my connection, but the person in the lab. But they said, that is the real deal, whatever it is. Cliff Barackman has one of these prints in his studio out in wherever he is, Oregon or Washington, I can't remember. And he says that's the real deal. So it is a real deal, and so they're real. Like you said, that hand was, massive. And look at that thing. That thing's 12 inches, from here. I mean, that's twice my hand, almost twice. So that evidence would convict somebody of a crime in a court of law, but it's not good enough for science. Go figure. Because they don't want it to be real either. Science gets their grants from who? The government. We'll give you a grant, but you don't know anything about Sasquatch. They don't exist. You better not do it, or there goes your funding. There goes a lot of things. So I guarantee you, they control the purse strings and the grants and the money that science gets for their things. And it's just a vicious circle. And they're lying to us just like you and I are sitting here, just flat out lying. And there'd be no reason, honestly, I keep beating that up, but there's no reason to deny that they exist. So what if it is a relative of humans, if we're related somehow? Well, so what? That's awesome. What's the big deal? We've been talking about that forever. Gorillas and chimps and apes. There's only 5% DNA separating all of us. 5% or less. Actually, we're closer to chimps, I think, than we are to gorillas, actually. But 3 to 5% is all that separates us from a gorilla or a chimp or a bonobo, or the any of the other ape or chimp family. That's all that separates us. Doesn't seem like much, but there's a lot in that 5% apparently, And they're using cow and pig parts to put in our hearts and our bodies as transplant stuff. We're all kind of connected, but we're not the same. So I think the government knows exactly what's going on. They just can't think of a good bullshit story to tell us, so they're just going to keep denying it until they come up with something that's we can sit on and chew on, and we'll fall for it for a while. Yeah, Scarborough, nice handprint. Yes, it was. Kudos to my buddy Brian. It's just frustrating. We got so many other things in the world to worry about. This is the least of all. We should just be upfront. People are really open to the idea of UFOs and life on other planets. We've been bombarded with that, in Star Trek and Star Wars and all the other shows, Lost in Space, all that stuff. We've been flirting with life on other planets and beings existing for years and decades and hundreds of years. It's a belief system for many. So why is this potential relationship with Sasquatch any different? Why is that so special that you don't want us to know? And it gets kind of hairy, no pun intended. There's some of the data and the interconnecting things are kind of creepy, kind of odd, kind of like stuff we're told doesn't happen. And why we don't know any of this stuff is because you and me and everybody, we're all told how the world is the moment you exit the birth canal. We are educated for the first 20 years of our life. Give or take a couple of years, daycare, kindergarten, elementary, high school, college, some grad school if you're real smart and got money. So there's 20 to 25 years of education that we're told this doesn't exist, this doesn't exist, this does exist, this is the way it is, and it's not going to be any different. Teachers who taught the teachers, who taught the teachers, who taught the teachers, who taught the teachers. Go back 10 generations at 25 years a generation. That's 250 years, just 10 generations of disinformation. And, you know, they're just telling you how the world is, how history is, how biology, this is that, this can't, you know, you're told how the world is. And you're uneducated. You don't know. You're just, this teacher told me, my teacher told me, so it must be true. If it's on the internet, it must be true. So when we see or experience something like you did that first time, your first experience, my first experience, you're immediately going, no, that can't be. That doesn't exist. That can't be because they say so. Well, who says so? Well, they do. Who's they? Well, the government and the education system and social media and everything else. They tell me how it is. So if you're just going about your life, you don't really think about, yeah, Big Island Beach, indoctrination. Exactly right. It's almost like a cult. So you're just taught how the world is, and you're just supposed to go along with that. Unless you have a curious mind and you stop and go, you know, that just doesn't make sense. I got to think about this. And suddenly you get to that fork in the road and you take that one instead of this one. You know, well, that's where you start learning stuff. You take this one, you don't learn much. You take this one and you got to learn some other stuff. So it is the indoctrination. We're, you know, the social media, we're just flaked and formed from the day, like I said, we come out of the birth canal. We're screwed. We're told how everything is. And so what do you do with that? You have all this education you have to undo and re-educate yourself, come up with a different belief system, you know, like you had no knowledge, you had no really thought pattern. All of a sudden, boom, 1982, right. It's over. I've been baptized. Hallelujah. Sasquatch who art in heaven, you know. So it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck. It's probably a Sasquatch, you know. I mean,
yeah.
Well, but you know, so what do you do with that? So, you know, and rational, intelligent people are coming up with this stuff every day. Somebody every day is seeing something they were told does not exist, cannot exist, and then they see it. Now, what do I do with it? Live a lie and say nothing? Ask some questions? Tell my wife, and she laughs at me and says, "Don't talk about that stuff in my house. I don't believe in that. That's bull crap. Don't talk about that. Scare the kids." So you sit on it forever. You become silent. It eats at you, you know. And so that's where all these people are coming from for my 2 books, is that they're dying to talk to somebody that'll listen to them without ridiculing them.
Right.
And, you know, listening and considering is not believing. It's just having an open mind to the possibility. That's what it really is. I have an open mind. Like I say in the book, you know, it's my Brussels sprouts theory. I don't like Brussels sprouts. I don't want to eat Brussels sprouts. They're nasty. Well, I'm at my friend's house, my neighbor's house. They're having dinner. Okay, put some Brussels sprouts on the plate. I'll move it around, pretend to eat them a little bit just to make you feel better. But I don't really like them, and I probably won't eat them. I might put one in my mouth and chew on it. I might, you know, swallow one, but I'll spit it out, or I'll just swallow it and just think, oh my God, that was nasty. But if you just consider the possibility, that's all you got to do is consider it. If you can still just talk yourself out of it after all the anecdotal and other actual evidence, that's not evidence to science, it's not evidence to the government, but it's evidence to us. We have to create our own evidence, you know. So once you get that ball rolling, you go, you know, that kind of makes sense. I need to rethink what I've been told all these years. Big Island Beach 69. Who is that? They love those books. Well, they're really good. Yeah. And I'll tell you a way to get them later, you know. And this being right here, funny story, but that's for another time maybe. But anyway, so when you get all this download of this information, you go, what am I going to do now? I think I believe that these things are going on. Everybody and their mother, the government, they wouldn't lie to me, would they? Well, yes, they would. They lied about UFOs. So what do you think they're going to tell you about Sasquatch and and EBEs and UAPs and ETs. What do you think they're going to tell you? Nope, nope, that doesn't exist. Nope, we have no evidence whatsoever. Why? Well, science says so. There's no evidence. Well, why does science say that? Well, because we paid their money for their grants and their studies, and so if we quit paying them, uh, you know, they'll go away. So we pay them, do your work, but you don't say anything about Sasquatch till we tell you to. I just think that's the way it is. You know, it's probably a overly simplified version, but in a nutshell, you know, you don't say anything about it until we tell you it's time, and it's never going to be time. Now that cat is one needy little beast.
Oh yes, most definitely.
So,
Now the cat and then little Tweenie running around here is just as needy as the cat is.
but it's a vicious circle, and it's not. It's it's not fair. It's not fair to the people, And honestly, I think they'd be considerably more open-minded than you think most people in America would be. I think we're ready for that. It's not that big a deal to a lot of us. It's in the belief system, and so
No, right. This day and time, I think the American people would be a lot better off if
yeah, it is that's correct. Yeah, and we got bigger fish to fry. The Russians, global warming, war, COVID, the job and the economy. We got so many other things to worry about. And maybe they're all distractions, some created, some natural, but the more things they can distract us with to be concerned with, the better off it is, because that just means they don't have to explain that stuff right away until they're ready. And they probably won't ever be ready until somebody pushes their hand, you know. So it's just frustrating. It's really frustrating, and that I'm just so vocal about it because I just, and I want these people to have a person to talk to, somebody they feel like they can go to and talk to, whether it's me or somebody else they trust. A lot of people know researchers and stuff. You just got to pick the right person to talk to and get your stories out and find out what they think it is, find out what they know it is, and tell them what your experiences are. You just trade your events, and everybody, they walk away going, thank you for talking to me, thanks for listening, and I go, that's a fascinating story. Send me some pictures, send me some more data because I love it, and and the habituation people where they're living with these creatures on their property daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. I mean, they have interactions on a regular basis. So you can't tell them they don't exist.
that's exactly right. I've got a lady on file here that she's from Gilmer County, Georgia. I'll not mention the lady's name, but elderly lady, and she was actually told, Carter, by the game wardens over there that well, let me go back. There was something that was actually coming down and stealing uh, pigs. They'd stole like 6 or 8, and I'm not talking piglets. I'm talking 125, 150 pound pigs
Yeah.
out of her lot and had toted them off. And whatever this thing was, it was not tearing the lot down, was not tearing into them. It was just reaching over the the fence over the lot and getting these hogs that weigh that much, these pigs, and toting them out. And the game warden, of course, was called out. They surveyed the area, came back up to the house, and told her, "Look, lady, you got a bear that's tearing into your lot down there, getting your hogs. Uh, if anything else is said about it, we'll lock you up." Basically, that's what they told her. So now you tell me why, but
Yeah.
that's what I was told.
Well, if she wasn't an old lady, she would probably know that they can't lock her up unless they want to say you're
Right.
filing false reports or something, you know. I spoke with the game warden. I don't know if you've seen this or not. If you haven't, it is mind blowing. How you like that there, Ricky?
Wow. That is awesome.
Yeah.
And where did that come from?
Well, I won't tell you exactly, but I'll tell you the backstory. Uh, because I can't tell, but this ties into the game warden. Uh, a guy contacted me, said, I got something I want to show you. It was that handprint. He's got a property and he's got 33 or 36 cameras, trail cameras on his property. And they're triangulated. In other words, there's one on this tree, there's
Right.
one on this tree, and there's one on this tree. And they're all kind of pointed at the other tree. So, you know, as any good hunter, if one camera misses something, the other two will pick something up, you
Right.
know. So he has them in groups of three in about a 1 acre area on a much larger chunk of land. And so he's been injured from work related stuff. And so he doesn't hunt as much as he'd like to. But there's a fellow that he lets hunt his land in return for giving me somebody to kill after you've harvested the meat. Give me some so I can have some for my family. And I need you to help me change out my SD cards, the camera cards, and batteries when I need to when it's time. He said, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So they got a friendly agreement.
Right. Yeah.
So this guy, the guy that saw this Sasquatch, here's what happened. The guy was hunting. At the end of the day, he was up in the blind. And I've sat in this blind. I've been on this blind. It's a perfect little spot. And it overlooks, I'd say it's 35 yards, 35 yards. It's kind of a nice, perfectly round clearing. And the blind is over here. And then way back over here is the woods. So he's sitting up in the blind, smoking a cigarette, close to the end of the day. He hears something. He looks over across the clearing and he sees a Sasquatch just walk up out of the woods, stares at him. They look at each other for, I don't know, he said it seemed like forever. That's an old story, but it seemed like forever. It was just probably 5 seconds. They looked at each other. The Sasquatch takes a left and just walks along the tree line. He walks right in front of the camera and it snaps this picture. Holy crap. There's one Sasquatch that didn't get the memo about don't walk in front of those little boxes with the eyeballs on them because the humans got cameras in there. They take your picture.
Right.
It didn't get the memo. It walked right in front of that trail camera. Now, if you look at it, I think it bumped the camera because if you look at it, you probably can't tell, but the trees, see how they're all kind of bent over like one
Right.
direction? I think he bumped the camera. He was that close. So it kind of distorted, you know, the background looks like it's moving, but his hand is close and in focus, click, it's over. It got the photo. It's like, that doesn't happen. they can manipulate electronics. They can, you get all these stories of hunters with 5 pictures of deer, then there's 3 blank shots, and there's 5 more pictures of deer. What happened to those 3 photos? How come those are blank?
Okay, Carter, you got a comment here. Was there any hair on the hand or fingers?
Uh, None that show. On this one, there was none, and the guy who was sitting in there, and I've looked at it. It is just clear as a bell, knuckles and prints and fingernails. And I think this is I can't remember which hand. I think this print that is, where is it? Anyway, I think it's the right hand. There's no hair on there, but the wrinkles and the fingernails are incredibly clear, and so there was no hair. But here's where the story gets really cool. So he calls me out there, and I go out there and visit the land. He's already sent me the photo, and I've been out there. And so he calls me about a month ago and says, I was out there walking my land, and I saw some people on some property that butts up. Looks like you just described Rick. Well, I think that's fighting words.
Looks to me just as you just.
Well, Rick's got some hair. I can't tell about his hands, but he's got hair on his face just like I do.
Yeah, a little bit.
Anyway, so the guy that owns the land, he was out there 2 months ago, and he sees guys walking around on the property that butts up to his. Now, the property that butts up to his is about 350 acres, maybe a little more, that was gifted to the state by a family with the stipulation that there's no hunting, no fishing, nothing. It's kept in its pure state. It's to be used only for education, for like forestry workers, game wardens, conservation agents, stuff like that, and for people to just walk and enjoy. No hunting, fishing of any kind. And so they were walking that land, and my guy saw these guys walking. He said, well, I've never seen these guys. I'm going to see who they are. He walked over. Turns out they were game wardens. And they were just kind of stepping off some rough coordinates because he was teaching some of these other guys, well, this is this land and this is our land. So this is the guy that owns this land. This is his property. So if you get to this creek, that's the border. So he gets to talking to this game warden. And one of the first times I've heard this was like, he is open to all forms of Sasquatch activity. Very, very curious. He talked to him and he said, give me your investigator's name and number, or give him mine and have him reach out to me. And I talked to the guy. And he's open to not only these creatures existing, but to the paranormal aspects. And my guy showed him this photo and he forgot about it. He forgot that he showed it to him. And I showed it to him again. I sent him a copy of it. He goes, oh my God. Now I remember I got to start checking my cameras a little more often because they got cameras all over their area. And they check them maybe once or twice a year. They're in such primitive, hard to get to places. And they're looking for poachers or people, running drug labs and growing pot and stuff like that illegally on federal and state and local land,
Right.
in federal land. So, but he says, I had a nice chat with the guy. He says, so now you don't want to talk to me just to see what I know, do you? He says, oh, I probably know what you know. Is she bringing me some dessert? I guess that's a no. But he's open to that. He says, I'm hearing and seeing some things from people that are, camping and fishing and stuff. And, I know what the company line is. No such thing. They don't exist. No such thing. We don't know what you're talking about. We've never seen one. They don't exist. So he says, I know better. I don't know how I know better. There's something inside of me tells me, I need to have an open mind. It's a pretty nice conversation. So I've got a guy's name and number, and if I want to, and I've been invited to go visit with this guy because there's some cave. Oh, that's what it was. They were trying to find some caves that are on this government land, and they were having a hard time finding the caves because they hadn't been mapped, because this land was gifted to them by a couple that passed away, and they, nobody had ever mapped any of it. They got some big caves on there, and he said, there's something weird with some of these caves. I can't tell you. There's something not right about them. I just don't know what the feeling is. It's just something weird about the caves and, things we're finding and hearing, so he kind of left it at that. But it's one of the few times I've gotten somebody in the green outfits to tell me, I've had a couple of one game warden here in Missouri. He and his wife left because his wife had a encounter with a Sasquatch broad daylight. And she says, I'm out of here. We are leaving. She's a wildlife biologist, and she was laying down on her gut, on her stomach, and she was taking pictures of frogs and insects and birds up close in this kind of marshy area. It was here in Missouri. And we just happened by their cabin one day. It was a game warden camp, the forest rangers camp.
Right.
And we just kind of, start up conversation. Hey, good place to camp around here. And they were in the process of moving out. So they let us stay in their cabin. And he told us why he and his wife were moving out, that she had this Sasquatch walk right up on her because she was laying down taking photos. She didn't hear it. It didn't know she was there. It just walked up right on her, probably 5 feet away. And she looked up, she heard it, and it screamed and she screamed. I think they scared each other. But, long story short, she says, I'm done. I'm out of here. You better be coming with me because I'm not staying here anymore. So they put in for a transfer and they got transferred. But their company line would have been up to that point, no such thing. And now we're being reassigned because we don't want to be here. My wife doesn't want to be here, and I agree.
Right.
So it's just kind of like the forestry guy and the tree planting. We saw something we can't explain. We need to go. I need another job at another place. My wife isn't going to stay here anymore. And so they found them another job, another spot somewhere, and they relocated. Noel Barbish. Hi. So, but what do you see? It kind of just ties into the things I'm talking about. Like, they can only keep it secret for so long. I know a lot of these guys are probably tired of lying when they know the truth. Here in Missouri, there's another area, one of my research areas, they call them pods. Now we know there's a couple of pods in this area. They have a name for it, pods. So they have a classification. I mean, they have terminology for the group. I call them clans, same thing, pods. Whales are in pods, but they have designation already. It's crazy. Got a lot of people checking in here all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Got a question for you, Carter. As far as cave systems are concerned,
As far as what?
I said as far as cave systems are concerned.
Oh yeah.
What's your belief on Sasquatch using cave systems to maneuver around?
I think that's probably entirely possible. Now, part of me, and that's the human part of me, is that if I'm going to use, it's like I'm running from the law or something, and I'm going to use a cave, I want there to be a back door.
Right.
You know, I want to be able to go out the back if they're coming in the front after me, you know. But if these caves go back, 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 and down, 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 much further than we're aware of, uh, there's no telling, you know. And I believe they do use the cave systems. And there's probably, and I have a guy, I can't remember the name of the city, but he's about 120 miles dead east of me. He claims he has some living on a cave, and they will alternately disguise the opening in the cave with these big, huge boulders that cannot be moved by anybody. But these boulders will be moved in front of and then away from the opening to the cave. Sometimes they stack just dead trees, just pile them up so you can't tell there's an opening there. But he has sent me some photos, which aren't all that great, but I believe the guy that they're on his property and they're using the caves. You know, here's you may know this. If you take an overlay of the cave systems, the known and or admitted to cave systems in the United States, you take an overlay of Bigfoot sightings, you put that on top of the cave system, and you take an overlay of the missing 411 and put that over those other two overlays, they match up almost perfectly. Do what you want with that.
Right.
Watch.
Well, we have one of the largest cave systems. I think it's supposed to be one of the largest east of the Mississippi, located over at Lafayette, Georgia, and that's one of our hot spots that we do a lot of squatching in that area over there.
Yeah.
Petty John Cave System. I don't know if you ever heard of it or not, but
Petty John?
Petty John's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
It's one of the largest systems east of the Mississippi, and we like I say, we do a lot of research over in that area. Now we've actually had a game warden on that area over there admit to the creatures being there on Petty John. So
yeah, so what do you do with that? Are they full of crap, or are they being straight with you?
no, he's been straight with us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so what more proof do you need? If you know, proof like you know.
I've gathered footprints off that area. I've gathered photos of tree breaks. I've gathered. Actually, Blake and I have a photo of where one had actually pulled a tree this big around. They had uprooted this thing, turned it upside down with the root ball sticking up in the air, and shoved the tree back down in the ground. And the root ball is probably 3 foot off the ground.
Yeah, according to many, that is a don't come past this point. A warning. Do you take it that is that a warning?
Oh yes, most definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And I've got pictures of that stuff all day long too. I mean, it's amazing. You know, number one, the strength required to do that.
Oh yes, yes.
You
know, we found X's over there. I don't know what your belief is on the X's, but I'm talking trees this big around where they were actually pulled up out of the ground and a perfect X made out of them.
Yep. Yeah, that's either, you know, it depends. To me, it's a matter of, is that a warning? Is it a message to other Sasquatch? Good hunting, bad hunting, good water, bad water. This is my area, stay away. What do those mean? But it means something. And they're talking to each other right under our noses because we see that stuff and think nothing of it. Oh, look, honey, that's a weird little structure there, that X or that little teepee made out of these big, huge trees. I mean, that's just odd, but wonder how that happened. Oh, well, let's go fishing. Let's go have a picnic. And you don't think, you see it and don't think much about it. You know, you and I would see it and go.
Well, on the mountain over at Lafayette, in about a probably I'm going to say a 6 mile square area. You have X when you walk into the front. You have X's on each side of this area, and you have a big X in the back. So now
Yeah.
you tell me. I mean, whether that's a clan of Sasquatch marking their area, whether that's a hunting area they've got marked off, what I don't know,
But
but it's
who,
there for some reason.
yeah, who or what would do that other than
Other than a Sasquatch,
something with opposable thumbs? You got two
right,
choices.
right.
Possibly humans, you know. Uh, yeah, I've got another photo here. Let me see if I can find it. It is because we all have. Oh, the structures are just amazing. I can't find it here. I don't want to waste too much time. But anyway, yeah, I've got some of these structures are so complex, like 15-foot long, and there's branches hanging from branches of outlying trees, and they're using those outlying trees to hang branches across another branch. And some of these things are just so complex that it's nothing other than their living room. This is where they live. There's 5 or 6 very complex and all very different and unique structures within a very small area. 3 arches, a baby arch, a medium arch, and a big arch. You go through all 3. It's like you're going through a portal into their living area. It's just bizarre. I saw that up in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. I think it's been 5 years ago. Incredible photos I got. They're not really easy to see in a book unless you got the book in your hand, but they're incredible. So yeah, they mark their territory, and we don't know. I think that if you look at these structures and you look at the species of tree, and I use this as an analogy, you take 5 chopsticks or 5 baseball bats, throw them up in the air. How many times will you have to do that before they come down into a complex structure? You'll die before that ever happens.
Oh yeah,
Because it's made. It is a handmade, something with opposable thumbs has done this. And if you look at the species of those trees, what did it say? You've got a walnut, you got a couple of birch trees, you got an oak, you got a pin oak, you got an ash. Okay, look up. Where are those same species of tree where these could have fallen from? Invariably, you won't find them. They were picked up and taken to this specific location for a specific reason that we don't know. It may be related to portals, or it may just be related to this is a geographical spot I'm marking for my own. But if you look at the species and the sizes, most of the time you won't see anything related to the structure from the trees up above where it could have fallen into place. They're picked up and put over there for a specific reason. Maybe the species of tree means something to them when they're leaving a structure for somebody else to see. We don't know. That's kind of going out on a limb, but no pun intended. But it's just when you look at these structures and the more complex and the big huge ones like you're talking about, they were obviously taken over there. What human is going to do that to hoax somebody if you're not there to see the effects of your hoax? If you're going to be a practical joker and want to freak some people out, well, you're going to make this weird structure, you'll make some noises, and you go stand behind a bush and you watch and go, hey, I got them. They fell for it. You're not going to make a structure and just walk away and leave it and go, boy, someday someone's going to find that and just go, wow, that's crazy. That must be a Sasquatch. I got him. Hoaxers want instant gratification for their efforts,
right.
So, and I found some that were crosses, like, there's a tree branch, it's a trunk that's 11 foot across. it's hanging up in a tree 10, 12 feet in the air. It's a cross. It is a cross. It's a religious symbol. And guess what's about 100 yards up the road? An old 1800 cemetery. You know, you can't tell me that, there's a lot of reports of Sasquatch watching or hanging around cemeteries.
Oh
Because I
yeah,
think,
most definitely.
yeah, I think they're fascinated with death. I mean, they know we,
One of our hot spots that we have down at Altoona Lake is basically at the No Rural Cemetery down there, the Macedonia Cemetery, and the cemetery dates back to pre Civil War. Civil War soldiers buried there in the cemetery, and that has been one of our hot spots over the years. That's where
yeah,
Blake had the sighting of 3 down there.
yeah. And so that's what I found out. I need to show you this one if I can find it. But it's so mind blowing. But there are reports, and this uh, tree structure is about 100 yards from it. It is in the 18 teens to the 1860s, pre-Civil War to Civil War era. And there are a lot of people buried there. And they are still relatives going to this area and leaving flowers for their great 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 relatives. Now here's the structure, and that's me
Wow.
looking up at it. And that tree that's horizontal, that thing's about 11 foot. Walked it off, and it is resting on little nubs of twigs that are just about like the size of your thumb. It was laid up there. It didn't fall, because if it had fallen, it would have smashed everything on the way
Oh
down.
yeah.
So it's just laying there. And about 100 yards to my back is that cemetery, pre-Civil War. And I got the chills when I saw it. I mean, it was just one of those things, you see it and you're seeing something that is actually paying homage to the way we pay respect to our
Right.
dead. I think they put that there because they see people going back and forth to that cemetery, and you can find it. You have to look for it, but it's there. And
Okay. One other question. Now you brought this up. Um, as far as no bones of Sasquatch being found in the forest. I hear that all the time. If these things really existed, we'd be finding bones of them. We'd be finding this, that, and the other. What do you actually have? What's your feelings on how they take care of their dead? What do you think?
I think they bury them. Now, if they happen to pass, you know, I think they're like many of the larger alpha predators, like bear and elephants, and if they get sick and they don't want to be a burden or hold their clan back, they go off somewhere to die.
Right.
And usually, if they're ill, like any of these animals, like elephants and things like that, they'll find a place to hide and die or get well. And so if they're hidden to get over their disease one way or the other, if they're hidden and they die, well, they're already half buried. Yeah, and you know how scavengers, you can take a body and in a week or 10 days, it's gone. The bot flies, the maggots, they lay their eggs and they hatch, and then you start eating the fur and the meat and the bones, and then the raccoons and the other larger animals get in and start chewing on the bones and get the marrow and all the healthy stuff out of it. And that body is just, it's dissipated, it's gone. The body farm, isn't that there in Tennessee?
Yeah, yeah, Knoxville. That's what I started to bring that up. We know, and I tell a lot of people this. I point this out to them. We know exactly from the body farm, from the research they've done up there. We know exactly how long it takes for a human corpse to decompose down to nothing. But you know, you take something the size of Sasquatch, we don't know what their decom, decom, decom,
Decomposition.
yeah, decomposition rate is. We don't know what it is. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, and until we have a body laying here in front of us that we can do like they do at the body farm and watch, you know, it decompose. then we're not going to know. So we
Yeah.
don't know what the rate is. We don't know if it's faster than a human, if it's slower than a human, or what.
Well, if you go on the weight of 800 to 1,000 pounds, 1,200 pounds, uh, what's the size of a bear? 800 to a couple of tons.
Yeah, black bear we have in this area 600 to 800 pounds.
Yeah. So elephants, rhino. How long does it take them to, dissolve into nothingness? So if they're just laying in the woods somewhere, and I think they do hide themselves quite well, then they're already hidden and they die. We'll never see them. If they do bury their dead, we'll definitely never see them. And there's some really great reports of them burying their dead. They will uproot a really large living tree, pull that tree up, put the body down there, cram that tree back down on top of it, and you never know there's anything down there. And there's several reports of people watching them bury their dead just like that, pulling up trees. If it's a smaller, if it's an infant, stillborn or whatever, it's a much smaller tree because it's, a little bitty thing. It's about the size of your computer screen. Just pull up a little sapling, pop it in there, and boom, tree, dust to dust, ash to ashes, So part of me thinks that on really difficult seasons, occasions, locations, they might even cannibalize them. Don't know. But that'd be a good way to feed the family, get rid of all the evidence. But, for the most part, now, they're flesh and blood, but if they are time travelers that can go from dimensions and portals and come and go as they like, they may go somewhere else to die on top of it. They may just go somewhere else to die altogether. And we'll never know it.
Right.
You got to be open to that because it's another possibility, however probable or improbable that is, but it only sounds improbable because that's what we've been told. That kind of stuff don't go on. You're out of your mind. Okay, whatever you say, government, paper company, lumber company. I believe whatever BS you want to throw at me. That's cool. So, but I think that's why they're fascinated, and you hear a lot of stories about them coming around cemeteries because I think they're fascinated with that ritual that we have. And I think if they're interdimensional beings can somehow uh, change their vibrational frequency to come and go as they please, the death may not be that traumatic a thing to them. They may look at it as we humans do eventually. Well, grandma was old, it was time to go, and they'll be in a better place and they'll be waiting for you when you die, you'll get reconnected with everybody. So that's our belief system in a nutshell, Cliff Notes version. Maybe they have the same thing, but they don't go to all the pomp and circumstance. Number one, they don't bury them so we can find them. They don't want us finding their bodies. They want to be kept alone and kept secret for whatever reason. So I think they go to great lengths to hide them. We make a big deal of it. There's cost you 20 grand to bury somebody in a cemetery.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't cost anything to bury them in a cave or dig a hole on the side of a riverbank and just bury them and put them up there. And, I think they decompose on about the same scale that we would. I think they'd be gone within 10 days, 2 weeks.
Well, I know I watched a video the other night on YouTube where uh, uh, these two scientists had laid a deer out in the woods, big doe, 125 pound doe, and actually, I think the rate on it was 7 days.
Yeah. And in the middle of nowhere, no one's going to see it anyway.
Right.
It's like the elephant graveyard. They go to a certain area, but nobody else knows where they're at except the other elephants. And, they go to die where they all go, the elephant graveyard. And there's, stacks of bones everywhere. I think they got the same thing going. I think they just, they bury their dead. I think we're kind of in the same bracket, as they are. And if they are interdimensional, they could just go somewhere else to die, and they will never, like I said, we'll never see them if they have that skill set, which I think is entirely possible. Too many people are saying other things, you know. So, and I think there's a lot more of these beings out there than people give credit for. I think,
I think there's a lot more of them, and uh, I think they're a lot smarter than what people give them credit for.
they're so much smarter than we are. It's not even funny, I mean, you
Well,
know,
hey man, you take a creature that can live a day-to-day existence the way these creatures live from day to day, survive to no telling how old when one passes, whatever, um, and never have to have any of the modern conveniences that we have. I mean, nothing. You go back; these creatures don't use fire. They don't use guns to get out here and kill their game with. They don't snare. They don't. Well, now as far as using snare traps and stuff, I found some pretty spectacular stuff that I would consider that they might have constructed. Maybe to help corral their game or whatever. But
yeah,
uh, but as far as them using any of the modern technology that we have and they still survive on a day to day basis, you're right. Hey man, my hat goes off to them.
oh yeah. Well, just think of all the things they don't need, and uh, I don't know how much more time we got. We would have been at a couple hours,
Oh yeah.
uh, but they have skill sets that we probably had a couple hundred years ago. I think we've progressed ourselves to the point where we've progressed all of those skill sets out, like cloaking and levitation. How do we build the pyramids and Machu Picchu? How do we do all that stuff? Atlantis. They talk about levitation and mental telepathy and everybody having the same goal. It was all about peace and helping humanity and helping your fellow humans and not warring and stuff like that. So they got us beat hands down. And I think they're here to try to keep us from killing ourselves and blowing up the planet. Depending on who you talk to, they're trying to keep us from trashing the place, and so they have skill sets and knowledge that we've just lost touch with because we have something to do everything for us. We have toilets, we have computers, we have planes and cars and all kinds of technology to operate on the human body. We have all of this stuff. We don't have to do anything for ourselves. We can't even see at night. You know what I mean? I mean, we have to have flashlights and special glasses and equipment and cameras to do everything for us. We go to grocery stores and buy our food instead of hunting. Everything is, we call it progress, but we are so detached from staying in touch with Mother Nature and our fellow humans, that it's every man for himself. And we just have lost touch with the ability to think and reason for ourselves and do some things and just be peaceful, loving, humans on the planet. So, it's strange. We finally find out what's going on. And I think it's around the corner. This all seems like a period of knowing right now. It just seems like so many people I talk to just think, God, any day now, I think we're just going to know stuff. It's putting it rather simply, but what I mean. It just seems like they can't keep lying to us forever. They can try, but they just can't. You know, telling the truth and letting us get on with our life and lives and go on to the other things that are more important instead of being lied to every day and being inundated with all this false data on social media. Well, if it's on Facebook, must be true. Well, if it's on the internet, that's got to be true.
Right.
Well, if Ricky said it, it's got to be true. If Carter said it, he's full of crap. He's just trying to sell books. No, I'm not trying to sell books, trying to get the word out because there is something you can taste it and feel it. You know, you just know there's something there, unless you're just in utter complete denial, which is fine, you know. But if you've got a questioning mind, you should kind of just start, you know, sniffing around a little bit, pay a little more attention about the world around you. You know, there's so many weird things happening at our house, and uh, you know, from 2019. Now this, I don't know how much more time do we got, Rick?
Um, hey, dude, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, I won't take too much time because we're heading out to Vegas in the morning.
Oh,
See
okay.
this? See this log here? If you look on the log, there's 5 rocks down there.
Right.
At the other end of the log is another rock. That's 6 rocks. I led an expedition in Illinois 2019 for BFRO, and I had the expedition was on the books. Then it got canceled because the person who was going to run the expedition got sick or had some family something. He couldn't do it. So they took it off the books. Well, a bunch of people had already paid and they wanted to go. So BFRO puts out an APB to everybody on our email channel. Hey, does anybody want to take over this expedition? Because we got some people to pay. They want to go and they don't want to get their money back. So does anybody want to do it? And I thought, well, you know, I've led 4 expeditions for BFRO here in Missouri, or 3 here in Missouri and 1 there. And so I said, well, you know, I've been to Illinois, but I've never done an expedition there, so I'll do it. What the heck? So I ended up with only 4 people because by the time it was canceled and put back on, a lot of people did say, well, screw it, I'll do something else. But there was 4 people and myself and my partner in Illinois who lives there, Harold Benny. So what's funny is that number of rocks is the same number of people in the expedition. Now, this rock here, I think signifies me. It's a bigger rock. It's pointy. I'm the leader of the expedition. These are the 4 expedition people behind me. And Harold, who has had a stroke and cancer and some other physical problems, he couldn't get to the area that I was going to go. It was just physically impossible because it's a really steep, craggly ravine that goes down, down, down this area, Trail of Tears in Illinois. I won't tell you where, but it's the Trail of Tears. So anyway, I led this expedition one night. Harold couldn't go down this ravine because it was just too steep and treacherous. A lot of jagged rocks, just really bad footing. So he stayed in the parking lot, this area. So he was there, but he was not really there. The next night, we went back to the same place, and he stayed at our campsite because he was too worn out from trying to get down to the ravine the night before. So he was there, but he wasn't there. He was with us, but not with us.
Right.
To me, this is the signification of these 6 rocks. So here's what happened. The night we led the expedition, I went and left a camera. I said, well, just because we had a lot of activity, but we didn't see them. They weren't communicating. We could just hear them. We knew we were being watched. They were throwing little twigs and little rocks at us like they were throwing at your tent and little pebbles and stuff. It just messing with us all the way down this ravine. It was kind of funny, you know. And so I said, you know, I'm going to leave a couple of cameras because this is an active area. I'll come back in the morning on the way back to Kansas City, get my camera and see if I get anything. I thought, well, maybe I'll get something because it was kind of active. I thought maybe somebody would be curious as to what we were doing there. So I went back the next morning to get my 2 cameras. That's when I discovered those rocks. There was nothing there at the end of right here. My cameras were up on a tree back up here. You can't see, but I have two cameras here pointing at this area because that's where we stopped the night before. So we won't go any further. We'll go back. I go back there the next morning at 8 o'clock to get my cameras, and those rocks are there. They were not there the night before. They were left for us to let us know they knew who we are and what we were and how many of us there were. 6. Pretty freaking cool. I mean, it just, and when I saw it, I thought about it and I thought, well, that's weird. Maybe we just missed it. And then I looked at it and went, oh my God, there's 6 of us. There's 6 rocks. And so I took a couple of the rocks and I took them back to my car and I dusted them for prints. No prints. So I took them back and put them back right where they were. We met there a year later, almost to the day. And Harold was able to make the hike all the way down this long, nasty trail. All the rocks were gone except one rock. Now, I'm kind of tall and skinny. Harold was kind of short and fat. That little round rock at the end, it was short and fat. That signified Harold. The rock that's on the end of this right here, the little short fat rock,
Mm-hmm.
it was put right here. And when he got there, that rock was sitting there waiting for him. It's like they knew we were coming and they knew Harold who was there, but he was there but not there. Now you can say, okay, well, people could have done that. They could have, left those rocks and you just don't know. But it was late at night. I went back cracking dawn the next morning, like 8 o'clock, sun up, October. Ain't no way. And this area is an area that to a person in this area of Illinois, Murfreesboro, nobody will go down here at night. Nobody. I said, well, where's a good place to go squatching? Because one of these people on my expedition was actually from there. So, well, there's a place I tell you what you don't want to go is down here because there's some weird stuff going on there. Nobody will go down there. They're scared to death. Nobody go down there at all. At night, forget about it. Nobody will ever go. I said, well, that's where we're going. Because that's like, you can't tell me that and then tell me not to go. Hell yeah, I'm going to go. That's where the action is. That's where the action is. So my point was that, and in this book, I've got Harold here standing by his rock. I can't remember where I put it. Maybe at the very back. Anyway, they were communicating with me and Harold. Congratulations, you made it here. Here's your rock. It's right here. We left it. They knew that was the rock that signified him because he's short and squat. I'm tall and slenderer, So what do you do with something like that? I can, did I fake it? Did I stack rocks there? It was a revelation. They're talking to me. They're communicating. I got a relationship going. They're signifying that they were watching us and they know who we are, why we were there, and here's your rocks. We were gifted. And we went back again this last year, and I'm going to go back this year, a year to the day. I'm going to go back every year, mid-October, when I led the expedition in the first place. We went back this past year, and all the rocks were gone. So I left a big pile of gifting, of baubles with necklaces, cheap necklaces from Dollar Tree, and baby little dolls and little toys and some food and stuff. I'd be curious to see what happened. But that was like an aha moment for me. Is that they knew who I am, they knew who Harold was, they knew who everybody was. Where else is Six Rocks going to appear in that collection of rocks, that five and then the one? That's exactly how we were investigating that area. There was five of us, and Harold was sitting back of the car because he was too injured to make it. It's just crazy, you know. And people are going, "Okay, right, sure, Carter." Well, I guarantee you, you'll never tell me that that's anything other than what that is. It's a communication and it's verification that they know who we were, and and maybe they thought we were paying homage to the hundreds and hundreds of Native Americans that died there on the Trail of Tears. Um, but anyway, that was just an awesome, and that was just like my baptism. That's when I knew I was in the club, you know. And I've had a lot of communications since then, bizarre, crazy, strange stuff. But it didn't happen until this happened. And I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in coincidences in any way, shape, or form. This is a real event that happened for a real reason, you know. So, that's my reality, and you can't take it away from me, you know. And just like you had
Exactly right.
in '82, you had your sighting. That's your reality. You'll never change from that day. You've been changed. You were a changed person from that first time, and that's your reality. And no one can take that away from you. They can try. They can say, "Ah, Ricky, you're full of crap." You know.
July
Well,
the 5th, 1981. That was a game changer for me, and it's
81.
it's always gonna be it will be till the day I die.
Yeah.
But Carter, I want to thank you for being on the show tonight, bud. I want to thank everyone that's tuned in tonight. Uh, Thank everyone that will watch this in the future. Everybody go on and go check Carter's books out. Carter, you said you were going to tell everybody where you could get those at.
Well, you can't get them at Walmart. The only thing I know, these two books, if you go to www.relichominid.com, that's my website, relichominid.com, relichominid.com. These are color, these are full color books, really nice, heavy, glossy paper. I autograph them. They're $22 a piece, but they're really good, solid, heavy books, and they got a lot of information in there. Uh, I have a book deal with Beyond the Fray Publishing. Now they do my black and white books, and you can get them on Amazon. Just go to Amazon, Google my name and Amazon Books, and these two books will come up. They also have Kindle version, and we're working on a deal now for somebody to do books on tape. Haven't quite got that figured out yet. So the Amazon books, they're all black and white, same information, same photos, but they're black and white. I think they're $14.95 on Amazon, or you buy them through me. There's $22 plus $5 shipping. Uh, but they're really nice, heavy books, and I autograph them. I'll personalize them for you and stuff like that. So it just depends on what your budget is, and if you want to, I'll make you a deal. If you want to get two of them for me, I'll give you a deal on them because I will. I just want to get the word out. I want people to read about this stuff because I guarantee you, somebody's going to read one of these books and they're going to go, like it's happened to me 2 dozen times. Oh my God, that's what happened to Uncle Willie. Remember? Back in '97, he told us, that's just remember, call this guy because that's what's going to happen. Because some of the bizarre stuff, the paranormal type stuff, is in here, and so it's gonna ring a bell with somebody, and that happens all the time. Every time I do one of these podcasts, I do about 60 podcasts a year, so I'm getting out there. But they're really good books, not because I wrote them, because I took my time with them, and they're good books. They're good stuff. A lot of good stuff. So buy one.
All right, everybody, go on and go on and order one of Carter's books. I'm very sure you'll enjoy it. And remember, hit the like and subscribe button if you like the content tonight. And Carter, we will be having you back on the show, bud.
Yeah. Do I have to pay $100 every time I'm on the show?
No. We'll do it 25 next time.
Okay. Okay. Good. What if I'll send you a book. We'll call it even. How about that?
All right.
You know, I'm all about bribery, but it has to be, relatively, even handed. So yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank
All right,
everybody,
Rick.
and good night, everybody.
We'll see you.